Hello, America. Dave Hodges here, host of the Common Sense Show. We are the show that is freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. Thank you so much for joining us. We're brought to you by Body Align, and we all know what this is. And what a lot of you don't know is your cell phone could be killing you. Oh, there is a long list of even notable people, John McCain, Ted Kennedy, who died from things like glioblastoma, brain cancer. And it happened to appear on those individuals exactly where they hold their cell phone when they talk. You need protection, and it's the EMF that does the damage. And the people at Bodyline have developed a patch you put on the back of your phone. It's small, it's not invasive, barely noticeable, but it negates the EMF. 30-day money back guarantee, nothing to risk. I have to tell you right now, this works. We all use it. You should all use it. Go to bodyalign.com. That's ALIGN, bodyalign.com/Dave Hodges. Bodyalign.com/Dave Hodges. Have an interesting situation here I want to do. I've received now more than a couple of requests for information on PTSD, and I thought I would just give you a brief self-assessment quiz, and I'm going to help you talk about to yourself the symptoms by helping you self-evaluate as I go through and ask you a series of questions. Okay, so let's get ready. Let's do this. Do you currently exhibit symptoms of depression or have previously received a diagnosis of depression? And what we know is symptoms of depression include persistent low mood, decreased enjoyment in previously enjoyed activities, impaired sleep, changes in appetite, fatigue, and irritability. Do you have that? So let's record that yes or no. Okay. And I got to tell you, you can even see some of these things in PET scans. Absolutely fantastic as you go through this. The other thing that we wanted to ask you here that I want to do for self-assessment, let me show you something here that I think people should consider when they're self-evaluating for PTSD. And what we have here is this. Depression occurs in underactive regions of the brain, in particular, a region of the brain behind your forehead called the prefrontal cortex. And by activating the prefrontal cortex nerves thousands of times, neural connections are strengthened. That's an active brain. Depression is the opposite of someone being active and strengthening these connections. The process is similar to neural mechanisms involved in mastering a skill. The more you do it, the better you are at it. Now, look at this right here. Here's a PET scan. Normal brain on the left, you see the increased activity illustrated by the yellows in various different colors. Okay, now if you look at the brain on the right, we see a depressed brain. Activity refers to blood sugar, metabolism, oxygen, and blood flow, and they're strikingly absent in the depressed brain. Now, one of the things that are very controversial, the SSI drugs that people are given are supposed to stimulate the brain on the right to become like the brain on the left with increased neural activity. I have to tell you, I'm not a big believer in SSIs. I'm not. The what they call reuptake inhibitors. I'm not a big fan, but I recognize they're useful with extremely depressed people. I don't think it should be a matter of normal course of treatment. That's just my personal bias from what I've seen. But you could be evaluated. You go to your doctor and say, Doc, I'm not sleeping good. And these are all precursors, by the way, to PTSD. I'd like to be evaluated here. And when we see a depressed brain, a lot of times we'll see PTSD. It's an associated feature. And it's something that people really, really need to take seriously. Another thing that we look at here is enjoyment in life. When we look at PTSD, and people can go through a hard time, but they still manage to escape into things and hobbies and activities they enjoy doing. You know, whether it's golfing or weightlifting or hiking or woodworking, knitting, whatever the hobby or activity is, there's still escapism and enjoyment in that activity. So people are often asked to evaluate to what degree are you getting enjoyment out of leisurely or previously enjoyed activities. When we see people that are withdrawing from things that they previously enjoyed, it is a symptom of two things here. One, it can be an early symptom of depression and withdrawal, but also too, with PTSD, the person is so consumed with perceived threatening stimuli to the person that they're not able to relax enough to enjoy these activities. And this is a counterbalance. This is why I'm telling you, when you go into retirement and you stop working, you better have counterbalancing activities that are designed to lift your spirit, make you feel good, and it's something that everyone should have. The best predictor of death in a man is retirement. 6 months within retirement. You have leisurely activities that you enjoy. Yeah. It's a buffer for a lot of mental illness and a lot of psychosocial conditions. It's something that we really don't pay enough attention to. Are you having fun in your life? That is really the central feature here. Are there activities that you still enjoy? And it's something that I think people really need to take a hard look at. The withdrawal from activities is very, very concerning. So when we take a look at all of this, what does this begin to tell us? Do you have the mental reserve and capacity to handle stress by engaging in alternative thinking and activities? And this is often what you look at in treatment. Cognitive behavioral therapy, which I mentioned in the last installment in this, is something that gets you to look at a stimuli that's in your face. How are you going to respond to it? If you do A, and you actually teach person how to do this decision tree, if you do solution A, is it going to make the situation more emotional? Is it going to cause problems for you in relationships, patterns at work, whatever it would be? Or if you do B and have a different response, how will that affect your life? And you get the person to calm down and you get them to think, okay, I have a choice here in how I respond. One, let's take the panic out of things because PTSD often excites the fight or flight mechanism, when we're in panic mode. And so you get the person just to breathe, take in a deep breath, hold it, let it out slowly. You can even do some mental imaging, like go to your favorite place in your mind, like go to the beach, or maybe you're imagining being involved in an activity. For me, it would be a fairway drive of 250 yards or further. There it goes. Beautiful sunny day. Look at that beautiful green grass out there. And these are images I'll tell myself to calm myself down. Now that I'm calm, I have a choice on how I respond. And a good therapist will walk people through a decision tree, and they're often cognitive behavioral therapists. And what they say is, okay, if you do the first response, what's likely to happen? Talk about the impact on your family. How's it going to make you feel? How does this affect your relationships and performance at work? You get to process all this. If you do B, you ask the same questions. And so people can begin to train their brain to slow down, calm down, and then make the most adaptive response. And there's homework assignments you can do too. A lot of therapists will write out, prescription of things to do. Here's the scenario. This happens to you. And it could be related to the person's trauma that's a trigger for the PTSD. Okay, now what are the choices you have? Based on your analysis, what's the best option to take? And so these homework assignments can be very valuable in terms of reinforcing. Now, the brain's an interesting thing. Biologists tell us it takes about 270 repetitions to form a habit. Now, that's average, depending on the situation and the variable involved, but about 270. Good therapists will actually have the person do about that amount of time. And I'll tell you something else where I learned this about the 270. I asked one time an older person, and I was training for college basketball, and I asked an older person, how many shots should I shoot a day in the off season? And there's one guy who had gone on, played a little bit in the NBA, and he said, Dave, I would say about 300 a day. Boy, was his instincts good. 300 a day, you form the neural pathways, you establish repetition patterns that your brain can respond to. You could do the same thing in decision making with PTSD. And then there's a principle in psychology called extinction. If you don't pay attention to it and ignore it, that factor tends to diminish and even disappear. So if you don't feed the panic, PTSD, oh, I'm on edge, and you substitute the PTSD feelings of extreme emotionality, fear, apprehension, paranoia, whatever it would be, and you replace it with feelings of calm and adaptive response selection, you begin to put the PTSD response into what we call extinction. Behaviors that we pay attention to, that we reinforce, tend to increase. Behaviors that we ignore tend to diminish or go away. And these are real key factors in any cognitive behavioral therapy approach. Now, I'd mentioned medications before in a previous installment in PTSD. Do they work? If the person is incapable of calming themselves down to make more adaptive responses, sometimes medication can be helpful. But unfortunately, we live in a society where we hand out very serious medications that can have profound side effects, and we hand these out like they're candy, and that's a mistake. And I often say, don't start your therapy for PTSD with a psychiatrist unless you have very severe presenting symptoms where you're not able to get to even step one of forming more adaptive responses. If that's the case, sometimes medication is needed. But if your doctor automatically refers you to a psychiatrist, you're going to go down the medication path first, last, and always. I always say get with a practitioner who's either a counselor or a counseling psychologist. So you got master's degree, first one, you got PhD with clinical training in the second, and I would do psychiatrist as the path of least, the option of last resort is what I should say. And that's the progression I would use. I tell the doctor, look, I want to deal with this without medication as much as possible. That's almost heresy to some doctors because of the way that they're trained in medical school. Everything is cut it out, burn it out, or poison it. And as soon as you want to use the power of the mind to try to form a more adaptive response, they recoil at that. It's like telling them you're taking vitamins and that's why you feel better. They don't want to hear that either. It's everything out of their paradigm that they've been trained in. But you can tell your doctor, look, I've done some research on this and I think I'd benefit most from talk therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. So a counselor or a counseling psychologist is really where I'd like to start. And if you go to one of these professionals, and maybe their specialty CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which by the way, the insurance companies love because it's been shown to be more brief and more effective in applications for things like this. So insurance companies usually don't have trouble approving these types of visits with a therapist that says, this is my perspective on how I deal with these problems. And if you present to these people and you have very severe symptoms, they'll refer you to the psychiatrist. They'll be able to make the determination. Oftentimes your doctor can't. And the worst thing I ever saw, and I had this happen to a family member, she was feeling kind of down and she was aging and had health problems. That's enough to get anybody down. Immediate response was to write a prescription from a doctor, not a psychiatrist, for antidepressant medication. Total malpractice. Total. I hope this helps. I hope I got you thinking about if you know you have it or you suspect you have it, what do you do? The different types of therapy. We've talked about medication versus cognitive behavioral, and then also too where you start in the treatment process. Where's your first point of entry? And again, if it's severe, it probably is a psychiatrist. If your symptoms are not severe but uncomfortable, the other approach that I mentioned is really where you want to start. I hope this helps. And you may not be affected by this, but if you know people who are, you may want to pass this along. This isn't meant to be the Bible of how to deal with it. It's to stimulate thinking to make you realize that you have options that you can deal with. And I want to present some of those options for you. PTSD in this country is growing and resulting suicides are growing exponentially in our society. We are a country that is hurting. And I think one of the reasons that Donald Trump got elected, he threw a lifeline. He goes, I see your problems. I'm going to work on these things for you. We have good, positive leadership. But for some people, the political solution in waiting for the economy to turn around and job opportunities to appear, you might need help before that occurs. And that's why I presented this to you. Hope you found it beneficial. If you know someone that could benefit from it, please share this with them. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you sign up for our newsletter, thecommonsenseshow.com. And in thecommonsenseshow.com, you'll see a link for the newsletter. And you just put your email in, and you'll get a recapitulation of everything we do in that 24-hour period. And I think you'll enjoy it. Thecommonsenseshow.com newsletter. Put your email in, and you'll be part of the family. Over 50,000 people do this. We'll see you back here next time. God bless.